I'm just a white indie author sitting in front of my camera, hoping to find readers that want to hear the white voice. All of my characters in my books are white. I wrote it this way because I have the white voice and I want to spread it. And so that you can learn about white culture and respect white culture. And I think it's really important because the white culture is just crapped on all the time. We hear things like, oh, you don't even have culture.
Hello guys, welcome once again to AfriPost. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great time. Now, many times when we are talking about the black history and the history of white people, there are always instances when whites feel that we are overstating our experiences as black people. For example, blacks went through slavery and they were subjected through hard labor and they were considered property of white slave owners. But then whites have come up in social media places saying that they went through indentured servitude and that they were also not paid wages and they worked for free under some circumstances. So they're using this to really compare themselves to blacks and saying that blacks don't have something to really cry about. This is something that almost everybody went through. Is this the case? I want you to listen to this discussion that was going online where some creators came talking about it and they gave their peace of mind in a way that only them can. Let's watch this, then come back and share our thoughts.
I see all the fighting between black people and people of color on this app lately. And there's just so much visible divide. And it makes me look back and remember 2020 when everybody pretended to unify with black people. And I miss that. Back then, black people could do no wrong. Every non-black person wanted a piece of the action, and we were happy to give it to them. I saw so many protests where black people were handing over the mic to non-black people, and they'd give it back, till eventually they just kept the mic. And everybody was happy, except the black people that were getting killed. But our ferocious, suburban, black TikTok leaders graciously allowed everybody to speak over our cause. And it was a wonderful time. We even gave them a Sharpie and let them cross out black on Black Lives Matter. Let them put their race or ethnicity in its place. Word for word, bar for bar. In particular, I remember around last year and the year before, the topic of Hispanics saying the N-word came up. And a lot of black people were like, hey, we're not cool with that. That's not y'all slur. And Hispanic people graciously heard what we said and told us, shut up, nigga. Then we had, the coons come in and tell us that y'all don't understand the culture of Hispanics calling black people the N-word where they're from. When it all died down, everybody's fine. They continued to casually say nigga and nobody said anything. There was a podcast where some Mexicans were mad that Kendrick Lamar only had one Mexican on stage during a Juneteenth performance, and they didn't know what Juneteenth was after we just celebrated Cinco de Mayo the month before. And they kept on, coming with a little heat, and then the election came, and it was a bunch of Latinos for Trump, and, a good portion of them. They weren't all Mexicans, of course. And we kept it pushing like we always do. We said this was going to backfire on you. Black people kept moving, forgetting about when, Hispanic people, Mexicans in particular, would call black people monkeys repeatedly on work site in their own neighborhoods. Forgot about the race wars in LA. From my understanding, in the prison system, Mexicans usually side with white supremacists. The black people on TikTok ignored it, kept on pushing. The Mexicans, the Hispanic, they're our brothers and sisters. Then the election happens and Trump gets into office and starts doing all the things he said he was going to do. Black people took this election as a form of betrayal because Trump is directly really going to harm black people. So the deportation started happening. Black people said, we gonna mind our business. And Mexican people like, wait a minute, niggas, but we stood with you, then took your movement. You've always spoken out against the anti-immigration stuff. You always have black community before, even now when everybody else is doing it. Y'all have always spoke out against it. Well, not this time. We've asked you repeatedly, y'all keep disrespecting us. And the Mexicans say, fine, niggers. That's why your people were in chains and you were slaves. And a lot of y'all tried to run to Mexico. It was about 3,000 to 10,000 of you. And we took you in. And we didn't send you back to America. We kept you niggers. Okay, and black people, we've heard of that before, right? We've always, wow, they did do that for us. Underground Railroad, right? But nobody talks about the treatment in Mexico after they ran away there. And that's because runaway black people in Mexico got put right back into a type of slavery very similar to chattel slavery. On the books, it said that black people had rights, but in reality, they was on plantations and shit. In reality, they would get whipped, and even though it was against the law, nobody enforced it. And that whole we stood up and fought so that they couldn't kidnap y'all thing was most likely because it was an economic advantage to damn near free labor from niggas. Seems like another source of reparations that black people are owed. In addition to that, they were ostracized, looked down upon, but eventually did intermingle, have Afro Mexicans. And those Afro-Mexicans apparently still experience discrimination from their Mexican halves. Nigga with the soft A and nigga with the ER is the same meaning. It's just a soft A with us because we speak AVE. But the meaning is the same. Even if it wasn't, it's still our slur. And y'all have a perfectly good slur in Spanish for black people, don't you? A couple of them. I'll respect you more if you call me a slur in your own language. Don't try to use the English version. The reaction of Mexican people being told no by black people for them immediately to start sounding like the white people they say that they hate. For them to sound exactly, in fact, worse. They sound worse than what white people say to us because they think they have a right to. Should have kept you in chains? Those are real comments that I have. I can show screenshots. It proves our point. You already had that queued up. I don't think about other races, to be honest, except about what they did to my people. So if I were to have a comeback to somebody of a different race, I wouldn't go to their oppression. I'll talk about how they oppressed my people, but I would never talk about their oppression. I wouldn't know to think of it. I didn't look down at them like that, right? But y'all threw an extreme trauma in our face, slavery. They're coming after us next. They've been at us. Your problem is you're used to black people either being your attack dog or your shield. And since we won't be either, y'all showed that you've always thought the same way as white people do. And it's really fucked up because while y'all are mocking our slavery, they're setting up prison camps for y'all and trying to push lifetime imprisonment, which is stuff our black people already go through, still going through slavery. And while they're doing that, if y'all took time to go look, you see a whole bunch of black women teachers, black men teachers, saying that if ICE came in their school, they'll protect your child. I don't believe any other race of people is going to protect no child. But I do believe that black people will. Don't protect their own kids, but go out of our way to protect Mexican kids from ICE. I do believe that. They are willing to do that and make that sacrifice, and even if they got on here and talk shit, I do believe that they would still try to help your child. And y'all got on here and disrespected the only people that have ever been in your fucking corner. We don't owe you a goddamn thing. Y'all came here into black neighborhoods most of the time, and we took you in and took care of y'all. When black people take in the Mexican illegal immigrant that barely speaks English, black men be hanging out with them, chilling with them at work, whatever. When the white people do it, it's to mock. When black people do it, it's genuine and I'm mocking them. You go look on these videos and you'll see black people saying things like, yeah, Mexican buddy, they want to be friends, they'll bring you a beer. And that's actually happened to me. It was at my apartment a long time ago. He was trying to get on though. Didn't speak a lick of English. I don't know where he thought that was gonna go. White people mock y'all. The ones that don't speak English look down at them. White people were raised to look at Mexicans as inferior, Hispanics as inferior. Black people were taught to watch out for Mexicans for our safety. Not in the white people way. It was their racist towards black people too. Be careful. Still let y'all in. Come into our culture. You still call us the N-word. Everybody else looks down on y'all. Some black people even say y'all was the new niggas. And it wasn't in a derogatory way. It was a way to connect with y'all, to let you into our community because everyone else rejected you. And this is what you do. And I don't want to hear, you can't generalize them just because it's a few. We don't do that to white people. I'm not doing it to nobody else. Because the fact is, racism towards black people is deeply rooted in the Latino community. That's why Brazilians hate themselves when the most niggas was dropped off over there. And the Dominicans, I know black, I Dominican. And y'all wasn't taking white people jobs. I'm just going to say it. Y'all couldn't have. The black wages dropped. And it consequently pushed more black men into prison because they started committing more crimes. Let's see who got this far. 10 out of 10.
Joe, the only reason I continue to respond because I know my people need education too on y'all satanic rituals that y'all do and how y'all gaslight our people. Bless your historically handicapped heart. You're tossing around these half-baked facts like they're gospel, but it's giving indoctrination, not education. And let's get a few things straight here. See, the white cargo doesn't equal chattel slavery. You want to tell me, oh, there were Irish slaves. Yes, there were Irish indentured servants. Yes, they suffered. But no, baby. That's not the same as chattel slavery. I don't know why y'all continue to try to compare this like it's apples to apples when it's apples to oranges. Indentured servants had contracts. They could eventually be free, own land, and even own slaves themselves. African slaves were considered property for life, branded, bred like cattle, and dehumanized and legally subhuman. And let's not pretend they were working side by side in some post-racial utopia, because they weren't. Even poor Irish folks were legally and socially ranked above black slaves by guess who? The puppeteer Ashkenazi Jews who were using you all too, but y'all just somehow don't realize it. Yeah. They testified in courts, escaped penalties for killing black people, and benefited from whiteness in a way that black people never could. But y'all hop and skip and jump over that too. So please don't confuse oppression with alienation. Not every suffering is created equal, and not every slave was treated like black bodies were in this wicked empire. You want a quote about the Holocaust? Well, which Jews are you talking about? Because you said 6 million Jews died? Which Jews, Joe? The true ones? Or the ones that are in Revelations 2 and 9? The ones that we call the fake Jews, where it says, I know the blaspheming of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan? The Ashkenazi Jews, the Khazarians, the Turkish Mongols from the Caucasus Mountains, where you get the term Caucasian. It's funny how the same people who claim victimhood are the ones who funded and insured slave ships, who own 90% of the sugar plantations in Jamaica, who own majority of the slaves in the transatlantic slave trade, controlled the banks, brokers, and insured and kept the transatlantic slave trade alive. And they still run the entertainment, news, and media that profits from mocking and manipulating black trauma. But I know, you don't realize scripture that talks about they would actually dwell in the tents of Shem, that they would hijack our culture, that they would try to be us. And ironically, they profit from both the Atlantic slave trade and the reparations from World War II. But I guess y'all blind to that too. So tell me, JoJo, who's really oppressed here? Who? I know the divide and conquer tactic. You repeating the script that was strategically designed to keep black folks and poor white folks divided. The Ashkenazi elite set themselves above all, manipulating economies, funneling colonial expeditions, pitting groups against one another to hide their hand. Yeah, so white people and black people fighting one another, but they the puppeteers in the back. They weaponized your whiteness to create a racial buffer, then quietly stepped back into the shadows of banks, media, and policy rooms. And guess what? Many of y'all still pledge allegiance to their false narrative, blind as a bat. And the truth, while you are actually defending your oppressor's gate. So Joe, I need you to sit tight. A video, I'm going to be dropping it soon with the receipts about what I'm saying, with the sources, with the straight up historical truths that your history class conveniently skipped. So I'm going to be pulling the veil all the way back and exposing the real architects behind this global oppression that we're talking about. And until then, save your smoke for somebody who doesn't have firepower, because baby, you coming to the wrong one.
White people, you are racist unless you work on deconstructing your racism. Unless you are actively being anti-racist, then you are racist. Even if you are being complicit, you are racist. And when you say things like, I'm not racist because my XYZ, then you start to tokenize someone that is racist. We don't care what big black cucumber you took. I don't care what big black cucumber or eggplant busted inside of you for you to have your child, your black and or maybe white child. I don't care. You are racist. You don't have to show me little Trayvon right next to you and be like, well, look at little Daquan that I have that came out of my vajayjay. You're still racist. If anything, that just proves how more racist you are. That is very racist. You're like, here, no, look, I'm not racist. This came out of me. White people should look at the show Deconstructing Karen on Tubi. Really good show to watch. A good start. Then start reading books like White Fragility. Start learning the history of colonization, redlining, mass incarceration, etc. You have to actually actively deconstruct your racism. I'm not saying you are a bad person for having biased thoughts. We all have biased thoughts. I have biased thoughts. But when you are not actively working to confront those biases that you hold, you are actively participating in a system that benefits you.
I'm just a white indie author sitting in front of my camera, hoping to find readers that want to hear the white voice. All of my characters in my books are white. I wrote it this way because I have the white voice and I want to spread it. And so that you can learn about white culture and respect white culture. And I think it's really important because the white culture is just crapped on all the time. We hear things like, oh, you don't even have culture, and what is your culture? Just slavery? You know what I'm talking about because you've heard it.
You want us to respect not washing your legs and eating unseasoned food? That's what you're mad about? Being black is exhausting, and having to deal with racism is exhausting. A white lady came online and called a 5-year-old boy the N-word and got all this money. And now all of you racist grifters are out here trying to do what? Make money? We went from black fatigue to black privilege, and now this week we're on white people are being discriminated against. To not understand by saying you are a white author and you have a white voice and you're going to white people and you're talking about the white experience, why and how that's racist and how and why that's detrimental to the rest of us is the problem in this country. Majority of authors since the dawn of time in America have been white. Almost half this nation is not white, but almost all of the authors are white. In 2020, the publishing industry entered a moment of moral urgency about the persistent lack of racial and ethnic diversity among employees and authors. The industry is disproportionately white, and the canon of published books from trade publishers is overwhelmingly so. According to one analysis, 95% of American fiction books published between 1950 and 2018 were written by white people. While that analysis looks at a broad sweep of time, more recent figures indicate that both the publishing industry and the books it puts out remain disproportionately white. The lack of diversity in the ranks of publishing professionals and in works brought to the market are linked. In a cultural industry like publishing, where subjective interpretations of what constitutes good or marketable literature are a major determinant of what gets published, the whiteness of the industry staff has accompanied largely white kind of published authors. Not only is the United States a demographically diverse nation, as of the last census, an estimated 42% of the country are people of color. It also boasts a demographically diverse readership. The National Endowment for the Arts estimates that approximately a quarter of America's regular adult readers are people of color.
So then I think it's safe to say that white people can start asking for support as a white-owned business and a white author with white characters simply because we have been experiencing discrimination in America for years now. Jobs, colleges, scholarships, literary agents. That's discrimination. It's not okay just because it happened to black people 100 years ago. And I'm not even dismissing what they went through, but anybody my age and a little older and younger has not experienced that.
Newsflash, me and my cousins are the first people in our families born in America with full rights as humans and as citizens. My mother, who is 60, was not born with full rights in this country. This is their new one. White people are being discriminated against because they've never had to share space. And if black people can say they're looking for black-owned businesses, black-owned barbershops, then I'm gonna say I'm looking for a white-owned business. Newsflash, all the businesses are white. All the industries are white. All of the schools are white. My reality as a black man is that I exist within a white country. That is not even a white country. 42% of the people in this country are people of color, but you guys control 90% of everything. When people have never had to share any sense of equity, any sense of responsibility, and you've always been on top, when other people want something and they want to raise themselves up, you guys feel attacked. You feel like you're being attacked, when in reality is nothing's happening to you. You're still in control of the systems of power in this country. A white woman came on TV, came online and called the little 5-year-old the N-word and got all this money. And so now all of you guys are out here looking like grifters.
Right? White women in the American patriarchy are especially dangerous to black women because they...
Something that Brittany Cooper says in Eloquent Rage is that white women's complicity and participation in state violence towards black people has a long and sordid history. She also highlights her belief that white women suffer from a type of narcissism that makes them see themselves as the most oppressed member of their gender. She highlights the ways that many white women deny racial power while claiming gender subjugation as a way to obfuscate and erase the ways that they are harming other members of other communities, namely black women. As she says so brilliantly, white women's tears and fears have a way that they can move patriarchal protection. And so white women can actually create harm. We see this often in workplaces, but then say, I am being harmed, then use tears to move a system in their favor. And because white womanhood is defined as everything that black womanhood is not, because white womanhood is seen as soft and protectable and demure, they are especially dangerous to black women who are not systemically protected.
You wrote, anyone can experience racism. My friend, I am fairly certain that what you call racism is just people speaking hard truths about us white folks. That's not racism. That's just a rational response to an oppressor. Racism is a tool of oppression that we have never experienced. Someone can definitely be mean to us because we're white, but that's not racism. That's just good plain sense.
Wow, welcome back to the channel. Now, white Americans must not equate the history of indentured servitude with the chattel slavery experienced by black people in America, because the two systems were fundamentally different in purpose, structure, and brutality. Indentured servitude was typically a contractual agreement in which individuals, often European immigrants, worked for a period usually 4 to 7 years in exchange for a passage to the Americas. Though harsh and exploitative, indentured servitude had a clear endpoint and offered the possibility of freedom, land ownership, and integration into society. In contrast, African slavery in the United States was perpetual, hereditary, and dehumanizing. Enslaved Africans were legally considered property, denied all rights, and subjected to generations of forced labor, systemic violence, and cultural erasure. Moreover, slavery was built on a racial castle system that embedded white supremacy into the fabric of American laws, economy, and social structure. While some white indentured servants suffered greatly, they were never deemed subhuman based on their race, nor were they subjected to centuries of institutionalized discrimination after their labor contracts ended. African Americans, on the other hand, were systematically devalued, brutalized, and excluded from the benefits of the very society they labored to help and rebuild. The scars of slavery did not end with emancipation. They were followed by Jim Crow laws, mass incarceration, redlining, and ongoing racial disparities in wealth, health, and education. This sustained oppression cannot be meaningfully compared to the experiences of white indentured servants who were eventually absorbed into the dominant racial group and granted the privilege of whiteness. It is essential for white Americans to recognize this difference and approach the history of black slavery with humility and respect. Doing so involves acknowledging the immense pain, loss, and generational trauma that slavery inflicted on black families and communities. It also means understanding that this history is not just a matter of the distant past. Its effect continues to shape American society today. Attempts to minimize or equate black sufferings with other forms of historical hardship obscure the unique and deeply rooted injustices black people endured and continue to confront. Respect requires listening, learning, and resisting the urge to defensively compare histories in ways that erase or downplay the horrors of slavery. As such, genuine remorse for the suffering caused by slavery is not about individual guilt, but about collective responsibility. It is a recognition of the moral failure of a society that allowed such cruelty to persist for centuries, and the obligation of present generations to correct the legacies of that injustice. This includes supporting policies and education that promote racial equity, advocating for reparative justice, and confronting the ongoing impact of systemic racism. Only through honest reflection, acknowledgement, and meaningful actions can white Americans begin to honor the truth of black suffering and continue to a more just and unfit society. Tell us down in the comment section what you think about this video. And if you're watching us for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel, like this video, and also share. You can also join our membership to get access to exclusive content we have here periodically. Thank you, and let's meet on the next one.